Hi everybody, this is Spencer from Farm Field Greenhouses, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about pruning fruit trees. There's a few different reasons why we prune fruit trees, and I want to talk about those things today. So people ask, why should I prune my fruit tree? Pruning a fruit tree can really help with fruit production. It can help with disease prevention, and it can really help maintain your tree and help it produce the best fruit that it possibly can. We should be pruning fruit trees when they are dormant. That is the best time to prune fruit trees. You can see this tree is dormant. Today we're in the middle of March. This tree is still dormant. The buds are starting to swell, but nothing's leafing out yet, and that's what we want. You can prune trees, most trees from January probably until the middle of April. Once you start getting past that point, you can still do it, but it's not ideal. It's a great time to do this. It's beautiful outside today. It's a great winter activity you can do while your other parts of your garden don't need attention. So there's a few tools you'll want to have. On small tree, you mostly just need a pair of hand pruners. If you get up to a bigger tree, if you have something that's a little bit more established, you're going to want a pair of loppers and maybe a small handsaw to take out any bigger limbs that might need thinning. So let me just show you. This is a really young fruit tree. This is like what you could expect to find in our nursery. This is a tree that we've had in a container for about a year and a half. This would be about the size of a bare root tree as well, maybe slightly smaller. But here's what you can do on a tree like this. This is an apple tree. This is a Macintosh apple. And you can see that this tree has a couple different leaders. On an apple tree, we really only want one central leader on an apple tree. And so this is probably the one I would choose because this is the nice straightest one that we have. This guy over here is competing for that same spot. We only want one. So I'll show you kind of how to prune that off. If you want to come right in here and take a look. This right here is what we're going to prune. We want to get as close to the trunk as possible, make a nice clean cut with a pair of sharp pruners. And by doing this at this time of year, this wound will heal very nicely. So we've done that now. We have a central leader that we like. We've got some really cool, nice, balanced branching. We do have a flat spot on the back of the tree here where there's really not much branching. So if I haven't planted the tree already, I would plant this side to the south so that it would encourage new growth to come off. The other thing we're looking for on a young tree like this is to set the stage and to kind of make the staging and the branching for future growth. There's not a whole lot more I would do to this tree. There are a couple kind of messy limbs here that are going to kind of cross the other ones. I would take that one off, and this guy here that's got a little break in him, I'd probably take that off. That will fall eventually. And I'd probably let that go for this year. You could also tip these, which is called heading a branch. You're going to kind of take the head of the branch off, and this will encourage more branching as it goes. But this young tree, that's probably about all I would do to it for this season. I might actually top this as well. If we let this go, this will just kind of keep going. If we prune it back to a bud, and that's another thing I want to talk about as well. When I'm taking these tips of these branches off, I'm bringing it right back to a bud. I'm not doing it there where I'm leaving all this excess. I'm coming right down to the bud and I'm pruning that off. I'm going to do the same thing on the leader here. You can do this as high as you want to. I like to do it lower because I don't want to be on a ladder and I'm short, so I want to be able to reach the fruit easily. So I'm just going to kind of go up as high as I can reach. Take the top of that tree right off like that, and that's about it for a young tree. We're going to jump in a little bit later in this video to some more mature trees, so I can show you a little bit more about thinning bigger branches, and we'll also touch on peach trees and some other varieties as well. All right, so here we are out with a tree that has been neglected. You might have this circumstance at your house. Maybe you planted a tree a couple years ago and you just never did anything to it. Or maybe you bought a house recently and there were some fruit trees there and they had just been let go. Maybe you were lazy like us and you didn't prune this tree for quite a while. So this is what I would call like a rehab pruning. It's got all kinds of junk and it's going straight up. It's really no good for anything at the moment. So I'm going to show you what I would do to this tree. Basically, I'm gonna keep this main stalk that I've got here for now. You'll see what we'll do to that in a minute. So I'm gonna take off this kind of side shoot stuff. There's also a piece that's crossing here and rubbing and chafing the bark. We don't want that. But this is like gotta go. I'm gonna use my saw. Get that out of there. I'm gonna use my loppers. Use some of the smaller stuff down here. And now I kind of got the tree cleaned up a little bit. I'm gonna take off a lot of the smaller stuff too, down at the base. For this to get nice and close. I might leave these for now. And then I'm going to come up here, and this is a plum tree here. This is a Shiro or this is a Fortune. I'm going to cut this off in the middle here because most fruits that have a pit should be pruned with an open center, meaning that the center has been cut out, and then your branches have kind of swept out to the sides. We'll show you some nice established trees later in a video that have been pruned well over the years, so you can see a good example of that. But I'm going to take this guy off right up here. Just like that. Okay. I'm basically done with this tree now for this season. Just step back and look at it. We got this one branch kind of up on the high side here. And I would actually probably take that out. I'm actually going to come down a little bit lower on this tree here, because this branch is going to end up shading out a bunch of stuff on the other side. So let's just come down a little bit further with this. Just like that. Now we're looking a little better. Overall, I'm pretty happy with that. If you've got any dead stuff on here, I'm just looking for dead branches. You want to prune any of that out too. This is a dead one. Dead. This guy's alive. Dead. Gotta stand back and look at it again. This one doesn't look all that great. So there's that tree, a prune to an open center. This isn't an ideal specimen, but we're not always dealing with ideal trees. So this is what a rehabbed tree would look like. So here we are with a apple tree that is has a little bit more age on it than the one we showed you in the previous segment. This tree has been maintained pretty well over the past few years. It has pretty good branching, but we want to thin this out now. We've got our branching kind of established the way we want it to, and now we want to kind of take off some growth to thin the tree out. We want to get as much sun and air penetration into this tree as we can. That will help grow the biggest and best fruits that is possible for the tree. And how we're going to do that is we're going to look for shoots off from our main kind of branches, our scaffolding, you could say, that are going straight up. Those are like sucker branches or water spouts, they're often referred to as. So we're going to kind of go through and clean that stuff up, making sure that we cut right down flush as best we can on the branch. You can see I've kind of taken that off. I kind of step back and look. Okay, where's my next one? I don't really like this branch because it's kind of coming in on the tree. You want to kind of keep everything coming out, and that's going to shade a lot of what's on that side of the tree. So we're going to go ahead and take this branch off. Another thing to look for as you're pruning your fruit trees is you want to look for flower buds. On a year where you don't have many flower buds, you want to be really conscious not to take too many off, or else you won't get any fruit that year. So if you want to come right in here, we can take a look at what a flower bud versus a leaf bud looks like. So right here on this branch, this swelled up bud right here, that is going to be a flower bud, most likely. It's got quite a bit more size than, let's say, this bud on the end, where it's really narrow and pointed. That's going to be a leaf bud. We're going to probably let that go this year. We're going to keep this flower bud because there's not many flower buds on this tree. We want to be really conscious of what we're taking off on this particular tree this season. So we're also looking for branches that are crossing other branches. We don't want any crossing or any branches really touching each other. So right here you can see that this small branch here is like growing straight up into this main branch on the top. So we would go through and kind of take that off. This branch is growing in towards the tree. We're going to take that off. We're going to kind of come right through here and clean this stuff up so that we can kind of have that open tree. This is kind of funky here, but we got a flower bud, so I don't want to take all these branches off. We're going to take that right there at the bud, and then we might go through and take off a couple of these branches that don't have any flower buds on them. We're going to shorten this branch up a little bit here, and I go to this outward facing branch here. If we cut it back to this one, it's really going to put all that energy into this growth going back up. But if we leave this season, this branch is going to grow, and we might get a flower bud spur that'll come off that down on this lower section. So I'm going to leave that in anticipation for next season. Again, this branch is kind of going in on the tree. It doesn't really have any flower buds on it, so I'm taking it off. This guy right here is coming straight up. He's going to shade out this side. So I'm going to go right down and trim that off. Also, any branches that we have down low here really aren't doing us any good. We have some suckering that's going on. We want to clean this stuff up. Okay, so now you can see we finished pruning this tree. It looks a little bit different. The overall shape is the same, but we've gone through and cleaned out some of the clutter that was in the tree. You can see, earlier I was talking about setting the stage for the tree, the branching, and you can really see how that was done on this tree. We've got a nice lower stage of branching, main branches down here, and then we've got kind of this mid stage, and then we got the top stage. Now on these three stages, generally on an ideal tree, your bottom stage is going to be the widest. Your middle stage is going to be slightly smaller or closer to the tree, and then the top will be even closer on an ideal tree. This example is pretty good. Let's go over now and take a look at a nice peach tree and how we're going to go about pruning that. Alright, so here we are with a somewhat mature peach tree. This peach tree is probably, I'd say, 10 years old or so, 8 or 10 years old. It's been maintained pretty well over the last few years, but you can see there's tons of growth on this tree. All the new growth, or last year's growth, is going to be a red color, and that growth is what is going to produce the most flower buds. So you can see, like on this right here, these two outside. So we want to be conscious of that as we're pruning, just as we were on the apples. If we don't have very many flower buds, we want to be really selective about what branches we take so that we do get some peaches this season. This one's really loaded with flower buds, so we're going to do quite a bit of thinning on this tree. You can see it looks a lot different than the apple tree does. It has an open center. It has no central trunk. It's cut off very low. This tree is a little bit lower than I would like it to be cut off at. I would aim for maybe like hip height or knee height in an ideal circumstance. This tree is still in great shape though. A couple reasons we're going to prune a peach tree heavy is because a lot of times these trees will get so much fruit on them that they become super heavy late in the growing season, as the peaches are getting larger, and you don't want them, you don't want your limbs to break under that heavy weight. So we really want to thin peaches out as well as we get later in the season, but we'll probably do another video on that. as we get closer to that time. So let's go ahead and look at how we're going to prune this tree. You can see first we can start out by pruning off any of the kind of sucker growth that's in the tree here. So we're going to get right in and prune this all off. First, that's the first thing I would do. Step back and look again. Oh, there's another one. All right, we get kind of most of that inside growth taken care of. Now we're going to go ahead and step back and really look at our tree and select out what we're going to want to keep. You know, again, same thing with the apples. We want to really take out a lot of growth that will shade out other branches. That will allow for, you know, a lot of sun and airflow to get in there, and that's really what we want to grow the biggest, juiciest peaches we can. So let's go in here and take a look. On this particular limb here, we've got growth that's kind of coming back towards the inside. I want to take a lot of that off. So I'm going to go in with my loppers here, kind of clean this stuff off. I want to shorten this limb up. This homeowner likes to mow around the trees very nice, so we kind of, on these trees, we kind of kept them a little bit closer. And so pruning can vary from situation to situation. You might have a big open field that you can grow a ton of fruit trees in and not really have to worry about getting in and around them. But in this circumstance, this guy likes to really mow around his trees and be able to get around really nice, so we try to keep these trees a little bit tighter for him. So the other thing I'm doing as I'm pruning as well on these peach trees, I'm going through and taking off any dead growth that might have been winter kill. I'm just kind of cleaning those off. You can already see this is becoming a little bit more structured. I'm probably going to take this guy off right here. And this one's coming down, so I'm taking him off. Just going to shorten this guy up a little bit, nip that off, get this off. This branch kind of crossing over into these guys, so I'm taking that one off. If you're heading that direction, I'm just going to take those guys off. Once again, there's a lot of flower buds on here, so I can really thin off a lot without having to worry too much about not having a crop. I'm taking these guys down a little bit. One over here. I'm just going to bring him back. So that section is kind of cleaned up how I would like it to be. Once again, there's always a little bit of variation. It's kind of like an art, but this is kind of how I would like to do it. We're going to go through and prune the rest of the tree and show you what that looks like. Holy smokes! You wouldn't think there was anything left of the tree by all the branches on the ground. But if you take a look up here, we have thinned it out quite a bit. But we've left a lot of flower buds still. You know, a peach tree, even though it's on a semi-dwarf rootstock, is still going to put on a lot of growth every year. So it is very important to maintain the shape year after year as your tree grows more and more as the seasons progress. So another thing I'd like to mention today as well, you know, pruning a plum, if you need to prune a plum tree, you can use kind of the same, basically the same structure and technique as you're doing with peach trees. There is one important thing, especially with plums though. Plums can sometimes get a black knot on the trees. If you come this way, I'll show you what that looks like. So this is black knot here, we can see on the branches. It's a fungal disease and it is spread pretty easily. So when you're pruning a tree, a plum tree, you really want, you're going to want to cut a lot of that out, but when you move to another plum tree, you really want to clean your tools, or clean your tools very often when you're pruning plum trees especially. Isopropylene alcohol is a good cleaner for your tools, your hand pruner, your saw, your loppers. Really important to do. So I hope this video today has really helped you and given you some encouragement to go out and maintain your fruit trees as far as pruning goes. We're going to cover fertilization and other care in a few other videos later on in the season. But for now, you can really start to get out and do some pruning. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks from us at Farmfield Greenhouse.